Are we back? I don't know.
It might take a second before they recognize
It's
it.
it's possible before anyone notices.
Yeah.
Isn't like streaming live incredible?
Yeah, it's pretty
Especially
fantastic.
when we're fighting like a really specific drug window.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, I definitely I do pine for the times before live mattered when we just recorded offline
I do.
and it was done when it was ready and everyone got it when it was done. you
Yeah, I
know.
appreciated that time. Though I have to say there is a definitive like little I do appreciate being able to take the tone of the world
Yes. Yeah.
as we speak.
No, the benefit of holding your finger up and catching the pulse is there. However, the whole thing with like schedules and stuff, we used to just go, "Hey, how's your week looking? When should we do it?" And
And
then
the answer was always the week's looking good because none of us do.
whatever the fuck. But ultimately, it would shift and move and slide. And so the moment it got like nailed down to a specific time with
Oh, it's
expectations,
hard now.
that
Actually,
really I didn't
I have
enjoy
a
that.
dentist appointment. Oh no.
Because like what the fuck is they're late? What the fuck is being late when there never was a time?
Yeah, man.
you know, there never was a time. I fucking this gig is to not have a job where you can be late. The whole point is for that shit to fucking not matter.
I mean, it's like no one. I mean, well, you're your own boss, so the only person that you have to answer to is yourself. And when you hear that originally as like a young person, you're like, oh man, that sounds so relaxing and freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, wait a second, I can treat myself like a complete piece of fucking shit that no one would ever be able to get away with.
Hey, so if I were employed by myself at this point, the thing to do would be to get your insurance and be like, I'm off of work with an injury.
Bye, bitch.
But because I'm self-employed and I'm not here out here spying on myself to see if my claims are real or not.
This motherfucker's posting kite flying pictures when his back is supposed to be out. Can you believe it?
Exactly. I'm in fact what I am doing is going, all right, well, maybe we can compromise and I can use enough drugs to feel okay for 2 hours to do a mini
Yeah,
podcast.
you
And by
totally can.
mini podcast, I mean a normal length podcast.
For normal people.
In fact, double because a lot of podcasts are about 1 hour these days.
I can
Really,
tell you that like you can, unless you have the genetic thing that I have, you can definitely use enough drugs
mm-hmm.
to get through a regular length podcast.
Oh yeah, you could beat a bunch of red and white checks. So I was originally just going with some Aleve and Robaxacet and some.
Oh, that's
and
bullshit. You
stuff.
need that prescription nonsense. Yeah, I know that smile. I know that's yeah. All right.
Codeine, baby.
Yeah.
Codeine.
Codine's your friend.
This podcast is brought to you by Codeine.
Oh, your friend Codeine.
Yeah.
The first love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The mayor, Codeine Travers.
So Willie, what happened to your back? What happened?
Well, so I mean, basically, I have been attempting to be healthier. By last time my back got fucked up, it was because I laughed too hard at the Disco Elysium bit in the diner, and
Yeah.
I was also, at my most like heaviest and like just
Yeah.
on a terrible couch for streaming long term.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that was a bad sign.
Mm-hmm. It was a very bad sign, and
A non-strenuous activity taking your ass out is bad.
absolutely, and it was a bad chair. It was a bad, like, and it was a bad lack of activity, and such. So I was just like, oh yeah, my back is in no shape for any kind of sudden thing. I have since done a lot and I've been trying to move a bunch more. And so I've created a bit of a regimen where I'm like, okay, I have my little boxing thing on the wall behind me. I've got my walks I can take. I've got the workout gym, and then I've got a boxing gym that I do to, whatever. So after a little bit of time off and after the cabin and stuff, went back to do some boxing proper in the boxing gym. And I had not moved in, I guess it's been about like 2 weeks or so. So I started out with how you usually start with boxing: grab some jump rope. So you skip do some skipping rope movement, and
Mm-hmm.
about 2 jumps in, I felt
Oh, like immediately.
immediately,
Like,
immediately, I jumped and I felt the pull, and it was like something's not right, you know. And it was that sudden like, okay, but it was, and it was like, all right, but then I was like, I don't know. I guess like it hurt, but then I was like, this could just be a
fuck
little.
this.
It could just be a little like
No.
tightness, right? So, 10 rounds later,
Stupid. Are you serious?
I kept going, and it was ultimately like I was actually able to complete it. The moment I kind of felt that thing, I was it didn't kick in, because it didn't kick in right away at the fullest, right? And like I did some stretches, but I didn't do, I guess, the right stretches or so. But anyway, that by the time I finished, I kind of was like, okay, let's see where we're at with that. And I kind of sat down and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna need some ice. And I got some ice and I started icing it. And I'm like, that feels like it needs some. And yeah, I mean, got home and felt the return of what was there a couple years ago, and it basically started getting like a lot more painful and stuff. And there's more to it that I'll, but like I will say, the part where I kept working out, which is the part that elicits the crazy reaction here, it was it was not enough info. It hurt, but it didn't fully kick in until afterwards. That's the thing.
Okay, so
It was deceitful, and like I will say that, like, I know when I feel something enough to stop, but in this case,
that's now a verifiable untruth. I have to say that is not accurate.
I've been injured before in a way where I know when it's extreme enough to be like, hey, that's something that is clearly wrong. In this case, it was not enough immediately, because I've also felt similarly in other times where I've been like, it's just like you need to like kind of like stretch that out a bit, give it a second, and like there's been times where it has not been serious, where you kind of have something like that, right?
I have a very important question. These times that you were referring to where you were like, but it's like wasn't like a big deal. Were you in the second half of 30 in those instances?
Yeah, no, I was.
Okay, well, the God has decided that now you are in the second half of 30 for real.
Yes, no, I know.
And it is over now.
So,
winging it is now over.
For sure. But anyway, I felt it on the skip, and then yeah, when I got back in and like, things had cooled down and stuff, I was like, okay, fuck. Well, I can tell that certain movements, certain things are like really, really sharp. It was like a 7 on 10 pain or so. Lie down and then go to get back up, and I'm like, upon getting up, I'm like, oh, that's a 10. That's a 10 on 10. Like, whenever you do like the pain scale rating, there's always a bit of a like, I never would go that high on the numbers, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, a 10 is my arm is getting ripped off, right?
Yeah, no, that is like, dude, there are 2 pain scales. There's the pain scale that the average person does, and there's the pain scale that people who have had a lot of pain in their life go through, which ends up getting them under medicated, because they go, well, I'm not dying. It's just like agony.
That's what yeah, exactly, right? And so that's the thing, is like, I'm like, whenever you get asked about that 1 to 10, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not bleeding out. My intestines are not in my hands. That's a 10. So we're not here, right? But it's like, no, that's not probably actually what they're asking you for. And what I do know that like what I felt was excruciating, right? In the moment of getting back up, and I was like, right, I remember this from a few years ago. Fuck. So All right. Well, fortunately, I kept a lot of what I had from back then. So I've got
Hey.
I've got the brace that it's on. I've got the chair. I've got the pads. I've got the heating thing. All these little things. The inversion table was downstairs. We pulled that out. I got the kneeling thing. All that stuff that was there, ready to go. I was like, right, good. Held on to that. So this can like help right off the bat. Um, and it was just it was just one of those things where staying in the same position in any whether seated or not or standing or whatever just sucked. Just kind of
Yeah.
walking around, living day to day, 7 on 10 like type of pain. And I don't know. I had definitely had a moment of being like, when it was at its worst, waking up, where I was like, oh fuck, like if this is what getting old and like having this chronic thing is like, if this is what
Mhm.
it is, this is a really horrible existence.
Yeah, Paige has had after her back injury with her, I forget what it was discs or something, but she's walking and all that shit, but she's basically in constant pain all the time.
Yeah. I have a stepdad as well who's got some serious back injury stuff, and it's a regular thing. And like, you definitely it's one of those bits where, like last time, you realize that like, oh, you need this for every single thing you do. Your lower
Oh yeah,
back is involved in
you're cool.
every
The
single
best everything
activity,
apparently.
you know. So it's agony, you know. Anyway, so I mean,
I remember my dad when he blew up his finger, he blew up his index finger, and then they reconstructed it, but it hurt. It always hurt because there wasn't enough meat left, so the bone was scratching the inside of his finger. And like for there was like a good 2 years where he's like, you know, I could just have another accident, and then my finger wouldn't hurt anymore.
hmm,
And we're like, Dad, please don't go chop your fucking finger off in an industrial accident on
Christ.
purpose. And he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, it's really annoying.
When it actually becomes reasonable to consider removing it entirely.
Well, it's a finger, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's not like your leg or your spine.
yeah. No, I remember, I forgot, there was some time ago when I kind of was like, remember every once in a while when you're feeling okay and just go, oh shit, I'm not sick or like injured
Yes,
right now. Have those moments where you go, damn, right, okay, cool, it's
this
cool.
rules actually.
Yeah, just remind yourself out of the blue that it's cool, that everything's all right. Um, yeah, because this is a fucking bad one, and I was like, okay, can I, just sit and record or something? No, no, definitely not. I can't focus or do anything particular. I can basically just rotate between a couple different positions of like sitting and then um inversion table and then kneeling and then
Yeah.
like whatever.
Trying to
So
find that one twist that
um
didn't stab.
exactly, try to find the one angle. Yeah. So it was like, okay, how fast can I go see a physio? And I was able to.
Apparently, really fast.
Yeah, it wasn't a regular one, but it was one that I was able to see a day or two later. And
Mhm.
from doing some tests and stuff, it's like, okay, I was originally concerned that, you know, we were talking about like a herniated disc or something like that, nerve related or so. And fortunately, that's not the case. It's acute lumbago, which
Mm.
is basically the muscle around the spine is weakened, and because this is already a weak point, it's
Yeah.
like basically just like, yeah, you have a fucking X spot, and you gotta
Don't
strengthen
touch
that.
that part.
Um, so that is a super duper real thing that is like, okay, the good news is that like instead of taking months, it can take weeks, because muscle correction is faster than nerve or spinal,
Right.
shit.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
mean, shit, Willie, when you hurt your back last time and it was your disc, like the podcast was out for weeks and
I
weeks.
was. It took
You were just out.
took a very long time. Took a very long time. I think, yeah. So, but fortunately, in this case, it is it should be quicker than that. So that was kind of the good news to it. It was like, all right, it's mainly just muscle, and I have been, I got some exercises to do, and yeah, between that and the drugs, it's like, all right, cool. That'll tide me over. And as I mentioned, I feel like the drugs in particular do good enough to reduce that number to a low enough number that I can like function and feel.
So you're sitting there and you're like, but you're not like.
Yeah, no, and I can feel
Yeah.
kind of normal for a few hours. And I would say too as well, because last time I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and it took a long time to get everything ready.
Yeah.
This time around, because I had everything ready, like I got to a stabler place much quicker. It's been 3 days, and it's like it feels like a lot better than it did.
I'm glad.
Compared to last time by this point. So, so there's always that kind of thought too. There's times where I'm like, okay, well, like maybe I can be productive with the time. It's like, you can't fucking focus on anything.
Wooly, rest and recuperation is productive.
Yeah, you literally can't. I'm like, there's whatever other things I was thinking of that were around, or I'm just like, I can't do any of that. I can pass the time by finding something really nice, slow paced, and perhaps even turn based. To ignore for hours and come back to. And you'd think I would say Balatro.
I thought you were going to say Balatro, but then you said find.
Yes.
So it's not Balatro.
It is not Balatro. However, I've spent pretty much the last couple days just poking away at a game, and it is a phenomenal game that I played on stream this week. It's called Shogun Showdown. It's really fucking good.
Time to punch it in.
Yeah, I wanted to take a look. I wanted to play some fighting games. I wanted to take a look at Metaphor. I wanted to poke at some of the other things, but I legit like